Hello and welcome to Fantasy Football Tips. I'm Adam Wilbourn from WhatCulture, joined by Adam Clery. We could call it just the tips. Adam Clery and Michael Sidgwick to give you all the tips you need ahead of Gameweek 5 in fantasy football. But before we get into it, if you're a fan of this sort of thing, make sure you subscribe to WhatCulture Football on either iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts from, for daily football podcasts. As I said, though, I'm joined by Adam Clery and the man who is top of the WhatCulture Office League, Michael Sidgwick.
Could you announce me by my full name?
What's that?
Le Champion.
Le Champion. Congratulations, first and foremost.
How do you think I celebrated?
Don't know.
With a little bit of the bubbly.
We're crossing the streams here. Yeah, congratulations. A great week. It's good to have the Premier League back this weekend, isn't it?
I have enjoyed the international break. There have been some good games, but comprehensively, it's like watching a different sport that's nowhere near as entertaining as league football. And I hate it when it appears. So yes, delighted that FPL is back in my life. And also delighted, thanks to the gods of the fixture list, that I can get the Newcastle hammering out of the way on Saturday morning and enjoy the entire rest of the weekend.
And so no hope of a potential shock victory at Anfield in the early kickoff?
None for me. But see, even though we'll get to it in a bit, even though I've got no hope for Newcastle getting anything out of it, still not wildly backing Liverpool,
Yeah, completely changing your team to ensure the points coverage.
Yeah.
Now, you scored 84 points last week.
I did.
A stellar performance. Captaining Aguero, unlike literally everyone else in the office who went for Sterling. And he did nothing. What are your major transfers in and out this week?
Absolutely zero.
I mean,
I don't blame them. Why change your team?
Le Champion is making absolutely zero transfers because my long-term vision of prescience and audacity is bearing fruit. And it's a long-term vision. It's not contingent on short-term impulse.
A lot of players that you've got on in your team already that I've written down as players you need to pick this week.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I've just like the Paul Scholes of fantasy football. I can see things you don't see. And just because you don't see them doesn't mean they aren't there.
One of the big fixtures this weekend, Adam Clery, is of course the late game on Saturday. Man City travelling to Carrow Road to face Norwich. The big sort of question mark you have is not should you bring Man City players in, but which ones, if you haven't got them already, should you bring in? The big three, aside from if you've got maybe Edison in net or a Zinchenko or whoever in the defence,
I will say,
your choice is Aguero, De Bruyne, Sterling.
Well, as I'm sure you will recall, I started off this fantasy league season by saying, look, lads, I think Kevin De Bruyne is back in a big way. I think he's way undervalued. I think what did they start him at 9 million or something absurd like that. Had him in since the start. He's currently one of the best highest scoring players in the league. Not going to change him. I've also got Sterling in. Not going to change him anytime soon. And I've had Zinchenko there as a very cheap way into the back line. Now, I did consider getting rid of Zinchenko because eventually they are going to rotate that position, I think. But obviously this catastrophic injury to Laporte probably means there won't be that many changes at the back because when you bring players in and out, you do still want to have a cohesive back line. If you're going to have a major absence, probably the only guaranteed starter in that entire Man City defence, aside from Edison himself, I would imagine Zinchenko's probably going to get a lot more. Even though it's not his position, it doesn't directly affect him. He'll probably get more game time as a result. So I have used up my allocation of 3 Man City players, and unless either Sterling or De Bruyne look like they're going to get massively cycled out, I can't see it ever having space for Aguero.
Some people may be tempted to bring in Otamendi, of course. He's traditionally had a great record in fantasy football and obviously should be getting an opportunity with that injury to Laporte. Who have you got in terms of Man City players?
I've kept faith with Kyle Walker purely because he has got more chance of registering assists as well as clean sheets. So yeah, he's been a decent performer for me so far, and I feel the best is yet to come.
I think Walker's a far better option than Zinchenko for exactly the reasons you say. But I've been waiting all season for that rotation to come in, and just it hasn't quite yet. I think Walker's going to be someone who might be in and out as the season gets on.
I've also got Aguero, sorry to interject, purely because he's established at this point, and he got a huge points haul for me last week. A fixture he's guaranteed to score in. Surely I think a hat-trick beckons.
I think the way he's playing at the minute, Aguero's guaranteed to score in every game he plays in at the minute. He looks fun. Even though the years are catching up with him and he's sort of been the focal point of that attack for God knows how long now, he does still look like he's going to score every time he plays, partly because they're just so well set up for a focal point striker. But I have to admit, I was wrong about Aguero this year. I thought he'd be in and out of the side loads. I really thought they were going to give Jesus a massive crack at the whip, and I think he did start the first.
He started the first fixture,
yeah, and I thought that could be that balance tipping, but he looks undroppable for me at the minute. No doubt he'll somehow still be rotated because it's Pep, but
I'm fairly certain. I'll give a heads up now. I'm probably going to captain Aguero this week, which means you need to put the armband on Sterling.
Yes, it means Jesus is starting.
Yes, indeed. What are the other big games you're looking at this weekend? Because yours is one of those sides that I look at as top of the league, and I think, how's my side, how have I got all these players in my side who aren't scoring points? And there's barely anyone missing. Like, obviously you don't have Sterling and De Bruyne, but you have Aguero. You may not have Salah, but you've got Mane, you've got James, Pepe, Allaire, a decent points across the board. So is it just a case of sticking with what you went with at the beginning of the season, or have you slightly rotated from there?
No, I've slightly... Have I rotated at all? I generally don't think I have. I think I've just stuck to
Perez
faith.
On the bench.
He's done nothing really.
But in terms of mine are the bare minimum on my bench.
Absolutely. I've tried to go just underneath the top price points right across the board, because really I wanted to fit Giroud in there, because he's usually, historically, a great substitute. Hasn't worked whatsoever, obviously. But yeah, I've just gone for that just below that mid price point. And if you look at the fixtures, virtually every single one of my starting 11, I didn't plan this. I'm not that good at this game. But virtually every one of my starting 11 has a very winnable fixture. So we've got Man City, most every fixture is winnable. Arsenal have got...
struggling Watford.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got 2 Arsenal players in that midfield. Liverpool have got Newcastle. Obviously, that is going to be an onslaught. Manchester United have got...
Leicester.
It could be quite an open game, that.
But to be honest, Man United are totally bobbins anyway.
Yeah.
I've just picked the guy who's got what they've been sorely missing in pace. So,
and a bit of arsehole about him. Looks like he actually wants to play for Man United.
Yeah.
I've got a bit of an odd one this week. Most of my team are playing away. I always try and I like to try and have some kind of rotation going on where we're going to get mostly home games, but it's completely come undone here. Got Sterling, De Bruyne, Lanzini, Digne, Zinchenko, Pickford, and Ashley Barnes all away from home this week. So it's tough and tricky, but it's a weird week really, because you've got one or two of the big sides with massive games, but beyond that, I think Arsenal, the favourites against Watford, but I think Watford are probably going to pick up with the new manager bounce. They could choke the store there.
The new old manager.
The new old manager. Everton are away to Bournemouth. That could be quite tight. Chelsea have got Wolves. That's going to be really tight. Man United have got Leicester. That's going to be really tight. It's one of those game weeks where it's going to be really unlikely point scorers, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say, in terms of looking at my side, and I know some of the people who've looked at theirs, with the unpredictability of a lot of these fixtures, you like generally going into a game week to see we're playing the newly promoted sides, or the slightly easier, let's just say, Premier League side.
Newcastle.
You can't, aside from City and Liverpool, and even Liverpool to a certain extent, Newcastle have turned things around recently. Beyond that, I brought Bournemouth players at the start of the season who haven't really done a lot, and they're playing Everton. You're not sure about that. And then, Wolves, Chelsea, that could go anyway. That could be a massive Wolves home win. That could be a massive Chelsea away win if Wolves are, having players recovering from international duty and still got an eye on Europe, of course. It could be a bore draw where neither of them give anything up. It's really tough. Is this a week maybe less for changes and more for just sort of sticking to your guns, perhaps?
The thing about FPL is you've got to have players in who, even when it's not an obvious game week, they might chip in with a couple of bonus points. They might get you a 4 instead of a 2. And it's weeks like this where those really astute buys come in. There's not obviously going to be a lot of avenues for your big point scorers to get a lot of big points aside again from Liverpool and Man City. But that's the case every single week. So you're kind of looking at, like an unlikely clean sheet for one of your back 4, or an unlikely assist for someone in your midfield. It's one of those ones that really sort of tests the next level of FPL thinking, where you're trying to work out, right, beyond me captaining Salah and him getting 32 points this week, we're going to pick up a 5 or a 6 or a 7 or something like that. You'll know a lot more about your team at the end of this week, I think, when it comes when the points all come in. But I'm glad you mentioned Bournemouth. It's my big song and dance at the start of the season of Everton and Bournemouth. They've got all these great fixtures. I have officially given up on Bournemouth now. I've transitioned them all out. I got rid of my Rico, who's in the back line. I've got rid of him. I got rid of Fraser last week just as he got his first assist of the season. Thanks so much for that. Callum Wilson I'm going to keep in for the next couple of games, because they've got not a favourable run, but they've got 1 or 2 games where he could pick up some points, but we'll get rid of him eventually. And again, I've given up on Dominic Calvert-Lewin as well. After thinking he was going to be one of the bargain buys of the season, Everton were going to commit to playing him up front. Everton look good and they look creative and they look confident on the ball and look very solid at the back, but they're not creating the type of chances that a forward is gagging to finish off. So he's gone for Ashley Barnes because his upcoming fixtures are stupendous.
Now, myself and Michael Sidgwick have obviously got Aguero up front. You've got, as you mentioned, the 3 City players in Zinchenko, Sterling and De Bruyne, which leaves the big money striker up front. Who have you gone for?
I've got Harry Kane at the minute, and I've got Harry Kane because, again, Spurs, I think, have got a good run of fixtures coming up. They were the ones that I meant to write them down, but I think their next 8 games, I think 7 of them are 2 or 3s. A lot of them are at home. He's got a really good chance to go on a run here. And Spurs look, again, for the 3rd or 4th season in a row, really, really reliant upon him for goals. And you'll know, again, as with this week, you're going to know quite quickly whether or not Harry Kane's going to be in for a good run of form.
It's kind of difficult sometimes when you come back off an international break because you can look at the previous form, but it's been 2 weeks since we've had any Premier League football, and it's almost like a fresh start again, isn't it? And I'm personally always inclined to stick with what I've got generally, maybe make one change, but I try to hold myself back on that so that next week, when you can kind of judge, okay, right, they've come back and, maybe Watford have turned things around or if people have continued their form, you've got 2 free transfers to utilise. Is that what you're kind of aiming at as well?
Yeah, there's often like sort of mystery knocks that are kept quiet, that get picked up on international breaks. As you said, form... Like players thrive on the confidence that form breeds, and without that, I just like to play it safe.
Do you take into account international form? Because I saw a lot of people saying, well, Pukki continued scoring internationally this week.
Well, put it this way, I'm not going to put Fabian Schär in there because he scored a goal past like conference Northern Ireland. Just not happening whatsoever. You got to take into account the vast disparity of the sheer makeup of international football. So, yeah, absolutely not a consideration for me.
It doesn't count. I don't pay any mind to national football going into this because how many times have you seen players either be stupendous at national level and dog at club level or the opposite way around? They're playing different systems with different teammates around them against different opposition. It has
different roles, yeah.
It has absolutely no bearing to it whatsoever.
Probably take it as a little break.
Yeah.
Because some of them get very little to do over the summer. So they just take it as a literal walk in the park. So, yeah, not a factor for me.
No changes for you this
week.
Nope,
because I'm the champion.
Major transfers.
My only transfer so far, I might make a second one to take the points here. I haven't decided yet. I've got rid of Dominic Calvert-Lewin for Ashley Barnes because, as I say, Barnes has got Brighton away, Norwich home, Aston Villa away, Everton home, Leicester away coming up. So they're all
4 goals already this season.
4 goals already this season. I want to get. I know you've already got Sebastian Haller in there. I want him eventually. When I eventually get rid of Callum Wilson, but it'll be for Haller, I think. But West Ham's next 2 games look quite tough. I've still got Lanzini.
Who've West Ham got?
West Ham have got their Monday game this week.
Villa this week.
They're away at Villa.
Lanzini in.
Then Man United. Then Bournemouth and Palace.
Yeah, so I think after that I'm going to take Lanzini out and bring Ale in for Callum Wilson.
City and Liverpool were players you kind of have to stick with.
Liverpool. The thing is, this is why I'm partly moving away from Liverpool because they have got Newcastle this week and they should probably get a decent point haul. But the next 6 games, 4 of them are Chelsea away, Leicester home, Man United away, Tottenham home. So there's games I'm sure Liverpool fans will look at and think we probably should be winning some of, if not all of those, but not games you're guaranteed a clean sheet, not games you're going to run away with the scoring. I probably will come back around to Liverpool players in maybe 6 weeks to 2 months, but at the minute I think their run of forms makes them a very, very risky prospect. They've got games you'd expect them only to be winning by the odd goal.
And who else are you eyeing up going forward, perhaps after this game week?
Chelsea players, to be honest with you, because I think Chelsea, I know I've been going on about them all season. I think they will come good, but they are scoring goals now at the very least. Tammy Abraham, he's still really relatively low priced. I think he's the same as Pukki.
The opposition is a bit of a concern for me that he's been scoring against.
But that's the kind of teams they've got coming up.
Yeah,
not the problem. They've got 1 or 2 tough games on the horizon, but after that they've got a good run. Mason Mount's another one I want because he looks like he's going to be integral to that. After Wolves and Liverpool to their next 2, they've got the 6 games after that are all 2s and 3s as well.
Okay.
So Chelsea could...
The research you put into this is so impressive.
That's it. I've done
How does it feel to lose to someone who just half-asses it?
Honestly, it's so frustrating.
Every season, I don't know.
I get wound up. I was telling a story at the weekend.
picture. Sorry, the story of the weekend.
I was thinking, I remember one season, this was with the moment when I knew I maybe needed to calm down with fantasy football. Heading into the final weekend of the season, this is a couple of years ago, so in a group with a load of mates, and I was going to win the league. I was about 50 points clear, so I should have just been like, oh, this is great. And the night before the final Premier League season, I had a nightmare that I inexplicably subbed about 12 players out without using a wild card, and that someone else triple captained Gary Cahill, who then proceeded to score a hat-trick for Chelsea. So that's when I knew I'd probably taken it a little bit too seriously to be worrying about stuff like that. But yeah, I've gone from someone who just sort of goes, oh, I like the look of them, like the look of them, and it draws me in this game. I get looking into the next 6 fixtures or whatever.
Big picture. Work out at the end of the season who's probably going to impress the most in each position and just keep the faith. Just keep the faith in your core. That's what wins your leagues.
Well, I'm a massive tinker man. So
All right, Claudio.
I'm going to continue. Oh, you mentioned Barnes. He's someone I've potentially got my own, as we mentioned. Allaire.
Have you not made your changes yet?
I've not made my changes yet.
Wow, coming on the podcast without committing to the decisions you're going to espouse.
Yes. Well, that came back to haunt me in the past, where I said I'd probably bring Pookie in, and Andy Murray convinced me I shouldn't, and then he proceeded to score a hat-trick. So.
I do think, and I know I said this last week and he got another goal, I think the Pookie bubble could be about to burst. They've got 2 really tough games coming up, which he'll do very well to get a goal in.
And you mentioned the other day as well that he's the only real outlet, it seems.
Yeah, like this is kind of going into actual football conversation rather than fantasy football. You always get these teams coming up from the Championship who keep their core of their squad together. They keep the way they're playing together, as opposed to like your Fulhams who just spend their Premier League money trying to get in better players. And that catches teams out, and it takes the league a bit of a while to adjust them. And hopefully by that point, if you're Sheffield United, for example, you've got the points on the board. I can see Sheffield United, I think you said it in the podcast yesterday, there could be like a 25-30 point in the first half of the season team, and then like an 8 or 9 point in the second half of the season, but that's fine.
Yeah.
You've stopped up. I don't think Norwich are in as strong a position, although granted they are only 2 points behind them, I think, because it's only Pookie teams need to figure out, really, because he finishes off so many of their chances.
The only other players that I've been potentially considering bringing in is McGinn from Villa, of course, who's...
I've got John McGinn.
Yeah, he's one of those players who, in and out, I think he's had, out of the 4 games, probably had a couple of decent weeks, so it's kind of up in the air. West Ham, again, is another questionable fixture, but they are at home, Aston Villa, and you're sticking with him.
Well, I've got McGinn and Lanzini. I think they play each other, am I right in saying, this week? Yeah. John McGinn is a fantastic player. He's one I've had in since the start. He scores goals out of absolutely nothing, which if you're Aston Villa and you're still trying to coalesce your 25 new signings, it is going to be goals out of nothing that will keep you up, if indeed anything will. He got that really good assist in the first game of the season. He was sat on my bench for that, and then I think he scored in week 3. He was on my bench for that as well. So annoyingly, he's been in the side the other 2 weeks. He's someone who I brought in to kind of cycle in and out.
He's starting this week for you?
He's starting this week because I was trying to cycle him in and out as the fixtures were kind. West Ham at home seems like something you could do something. But no doubt this will be a blank for him, possibly a sending off, and then you get a hat-trick next week.
I think in terms of like United players, it's very difficult to call. I think Daniel James is probably the only one I'd go for. In terms of the other big sides, we've mentioned City, we've mentioned Liverpool, you mentioned Chelsea. Arsenal, I think, is someone that people need to keep an eye on. You've got both players I'm going to mention here already in your side. Next few Arsenal games, Watford, Villa, Man United, Bournemouth, and Sheffield United. The obvious ones are Lacazette and Aubameyang. Lacazette a little bit cheaper up front if you want to rotate him out, rotate out a Kane or an Aguero or whoever. But I think Pepe and, we always get this wrong, Ceballos?
Well, if we all say it different ways, then at least in the comments someone will be like, well, he got it right.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, Ceballos.
Caballas.
Okay, them.
Yes,
the
get
players
them
that
in.
I would consider
Danny
bringing them in.
Onions.
Pepe has shown glimpses of just pure filth skill.
Yeah.
Which will breed confidence, which should produce results.
I think a lot of people have gone for, I'm just going to call them onions because it's quite similar to the... Isn't like caballo the Spanish word for onion? It's close enough.
It's a bit Joe Kinnear, this.
Yeah, well, here we are. I think people got a little bit...
Onions, I'm sure be delighted with that.
I don't know if he watches. There's a couple of...
What do they call thingy? Dave, isn't it?
Azpilicueta.
Yeah.
David Azpilicueta. I don't think he's the kind of player that's going to end up with a load of goals or a load of points by the end of the season, because I think the role he's going to play in that Arsenal side is way deeper than it looks to me at the minute. He looks like the kind of person who's going to bring the ball out from the back. You'll get points. He's playing for Arsenal. There'll always be opportunities for him, but I think as good as he is, he's not going to be an FPL must-have in a couple of weeks. But I could be totally wrong. They might play him further up.
What you two think? Who are you going to put the captain's armband on this week? I'm going to give a shout-out to Sagar Sedhine, manager of Shadow Recruit in the WhatCulture Fans Fantasy League. Yet again, I think we mentioned him the other week. He is still top of the WhatCulture Fans League. He scored 82 points last week, which is almost as good as Michael Sidgwick. He has a grand total of 315 points after 4 game weeks.
That's absurd.
And is 68th in the world. So congratulations.
You outscored someone who's 68th in the world.
Just makes us think, how good actually am I? 50th, 40th, 30th. Who knows?
Do you know what it is? I'm absolutely sick of this Sedhan or Sidgwick conversation. Can we not just be pleased that we're allowed to see them both play FPL at the same time?
Should point out, I hoid Vestergaard in arbitrarily.
Yeah, I think everybody did, and he's doing amazing.
I got some points from him.
Who's going to be your captain this week?
Ooh, potentially Aguero, because he's almost nailed on to score in a game like that. But, I'm a maverick. Obviously, look at that initial team selection. I'm a total maverick. I'm half flirting with the idea, just because I've got an unassailable lead in the Office League. Flirting with the idea of captaining Dubravka.
Interesting.
The amount...
Insane, not interesting. And also Dubravka.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's
sorry.
as well.
That's what is part of that new tweet that someone sent out of how you're meant to pronounce the new player's name.
The amount of shots that are going to be peppered in his direction, and he's a great shot stopper.
I'll put it this way. If Newcastle are going to get anything from that game, they need to not concede. And if they don't concede, Martin Dubravka will end up with 20 points.
Yes.
Purely for the bonuses you'll get and the saves you'll get. Again, I think it was the Spurs game as well. Although he didn't make that many saves, he ended up with a load of points off the back of that.
It just depends on what side of the bed at which I wake up. Do I decide to play it safe or risky? Who knows? But if you want a tip from Le Champion, Dubravka. Dubravka?
I think
Dubravka.
I've got Sterling currently captain. I probably will stick with him. But I was always tempted to go with Van Dijk. I don't know why. I've just got this.
It feels wrong getting captain in defenders.
I know I've got this premonition of it. Well, obviously they'll get a clean sheet and then bulleting in a header from a corner, and I could just. I don't know. It might depend what side of the bed I get up from.
Very quickly, I'm not a man who follows a Premier League side, very obviously, as a Chesterfield fan. But for you two, as Newcastle fans, does it ever taint your experience of it in terms of the fact if you did have Van Dijk as captain and Newcastle scored, would that temper your celebrations?
Last season, obviously this season's prescience and audacity, that is the overarching strategy. Last season, Newcastle got off to such a chronically awful start that my tactic was to captain or transfer in any player who was hauling in the points who happened to have Newcastle that game week. So my entire existence to get some little scrotum of happiness was to try and just make sure that Newcastle lost to my benefit. So yeah, I will enjoy it as long as I get like 6 points. So a nice little number 6 in it. It brightens up your day when you see it on that patch of green.
No, not even slightly. No. It's separate parts of my brain. I can be happy that my FPL team are doing well and still really annoyed. They don't cross over. I'd never be like, oh good, Van Dijk's got me some points against Newcastle there. I would just remember later in the day that, oh well, at least it was something I got.
No, if it was Freddie Shepherd, I'd be heartbroken, but it's that fat arsehole, so I don't really care.
I still find myself, and I'm sure everyone does this, watching games like Bournemouth-Everton on Sunday. I'll be watching it, screaming to pass it to Digne or something, just because he's in my fantasy team. I'm going to probably captain Aguero, knowing my luck.
Actually, saying that, now that I've looked at it, I might go Kane.
Crystal Palace
I might go Crystal Palace, like a little bit all over the shop at the back. Although Spurs at home seem to find it very difficult to break down stubborn sides.
I think they got a really good defensive record, Crystal Palace, this season.
Yeah, they dropped their arse when they went to Southampton, but they're very, very counter-attacking.
Yeah.
So they will be sat in very deep against a side like Spurs.
Right, let us know your fantasy football tips in the comments section below or on Twitter at WhatCultureFC. Oh, very quick mention of the fact that myself, Adam Clery and Adam Nicholas are in a league together called the Adam Cup.
The Adam Cup.
And currently top of that league is Average. So
somehow, it's a head-to-head league, so we play each other. But every week, one of us has to play Average. And every week, Average has beat the person it's playing. So League Average is currently top of the Adam Cup.
Congratulations to that.
Congratulations to Average.
Once again, congratulations to Sagar Sedhain. He is the guy to catch even in the WhatCulture Fans League. Right, as I said, you can send us Twitter questions at WhatCultureFC, where you can follow all three of us. You can follow Adam Clery at
Adam Clery, Clery.
You can follow Michael Sidgwick at
Le Champion. M Sidgwick. I do want the followers.
Yeah.
I do.
You can follow me at Adam Wilbourn. As I said, follow us all at WhatCulture FC. We will be back tomorrow with the Premier League preview. We can't call it the Premier League preview because we'll get done. But for now, my thanks to Adam Clery and to Michael Sidgwick. Thank you for watching, and we will see you soon.